We're live. Well, actually, we're not. We're bringing you the longest running live show from the Content Marketing Institute, but we're pre recording this episode. But for you, it's running live. That means you can still share your comments and observations with the rest of the live audience. And we hope you do. But this time, we take the show on the road at Content Tech in San Diego with an exclusive behind the scenes discussion with the professor of content marketing, Robert Rose. This bonus pre-recorded episode explores the latest thinking in content technology and what it means for content marketers. My name is Buddy Scalera, and I'm a content strategist building intelligent content solutions, an NFT creator, and a professional comic book writer. I'm joined by Content Marketing Institute's legendary creative director, their lead designer, and the foreman on the snow removal team on the planet Hoth, Joe J.K. Kalinowski.
Good afternoon, buddy. How are you today?
Joe, it was so good. We got to be together in person, IRL.
For the first time in a very long time. Felt great, didn't it?
It really did. And I think what was amazing about content tech was, once you realize just how great it is to have these real conversations with people, you realize just how much you miss live events. And I just felt it was more than just the presentations. It was that in between networking, there was a couple of speakers, a couple of people in the audience where we would just continue that dialogue, both in the hall, then at the meal times, and then literally afterwards.
Sure.
It was so good.
It really was. I was talking to a few friends about this event, and I think I even spoke to you about it a little bit too. And I said, it was cathartic more than anything. When you can actually get together with somebody again after everything that we've all been through, and even the most mundane conversations turn into hour-long conversations about life in general. I mean, we were sitting there talking about small talk, and then we went into content technology in the hall, and then you kind of drizzle out, and you're drinking a cup of coffee, and then somebody starts talking about maybe their favorite beer, and I literally saw two attendees sitting an hour and a half past our last session, still talking about beer, about the beach, about just sitting in the hallway. It was fantastic, and I think that's it. It was just cathartic. It was just great seeing people and having in real life discussions.
And what for those of us who've been working for home so long, to see a presentation and then be able to go up and talk to the presenter and say, can you clarify certain parts of your presentation? I think that's really meaningful. And I'm a big fan of that because it's an experience. And, one of the things that we did together, Joe, was we talked to what I call the professor of content marketing, Robert Rose. You may know him from other best-selling books as well. But, Robert talks a lot about experience and what it means to create an experience. And for us, Content Tech was an experience. And then we're bringing that experience to the show. You want to talk about the conversation that we had with Robert?
Sure. Well, first and foremost, buddy, you know how excited I was about this conversation that you and I had with Robert?
Yeah, you did something unique that.
I immediately got home from San Diego and got a new tattoo. Are you ready?
Yeah, show me. What'd you get?
Can you see it? I got the official, let me put my camera down here a little bit. I got the official Robert Rose tattoo.
Oh my God, you got Robert Rose, Anna Rose tattooed on your forearm. You must have really been excited for this interview.
Let me just tell you, my wife loves it. No, all kidding aside, we had a wonderful conversation with Robert. He was gracious enough to sit down with you and I out in sunny San Diego. And we, like you said, we covered experiences, and even we covered a couple wonderful creative thoughts, especially one thing that you and I were both discussing a little bit about creative underdogs,
Yeah.
people that kind of, whenever the odds were against them, they just kind of went with their gut and, chased that creative spark that they had. Obviously every time Robert talks, I learn more and more, and I've known him for over a decade, and he's a wellspring of information for all of us, be it about life, content, experiences, everything. So I really think that our friends here are going to enjoy the conversation you and I had with them.
I think what's also nice about the conversation is because both of us have known Robert for a long time. You much more closely than me because you've worked with him. But I think what's nice about this interview with Robert is it's very friendly, it's very peer related, and we just let it go where it goes. And then Robert opens up about certain elements of marketing and experience and underdog, and all of that is very authentic. And I think really benefited from being in person. You'll see that we basically had a single camera lockdown, and then we've asked our producer Amanda Subler to edit it into something. We haven't seen the final product yet, so we'll be watching it with the audience. And we do encourage everybody who's watching today, don't tune out. Like, have the dialogue. You guys are a community. We're going to be reading all of the comments at the end. But we really do encourage you to continue that dialogue and the commenting, because that really does drive the creative show, right, Joe?
It absolutely does, and it keeps as long as we keep the creative or the conversation going. It just kind of what I love, buddy, is you and I feed so much off this community, and so keep that conversation going, because that kind of lights that creative in us to kind of keep this show, and it helps us with topics and more discussion that we want to have.
All right. So, Joe, if you're ready, Amanda, roll the tape.
Welcome to the Creative Show.
It's really nice to be here with both of you. Very close. We're
Very close.
We're very close to each other.
We're told that this is how real Hollywood does it. There's
see,
an awkward
yeah.
closeness.
It's very true. You see this on newscasts all the time, right? Where it looks actually normally spaced apart, but if you were in person with them,
They're basically sitting
on each other's lap.
And it's heck of warm in here, huh?
Yeah.
Well, it's a very intimate setting here.
Yes, it is.
So yeah, we're shooting here in San Diego. We're at the Live Content Tech Summit, which is, I have to tell you, it's the event to be in if you're into MarTech and you want to up your game a little bit. We're here with Robert Rose. Now, what's your current role here?
Well, overhead is generally what I'm considered. My role with the Content Marketing Institute is, of course, Chief Strategy Advisor. So I really work to help curate some of the speakers here at the events, and then as well, I do some writing and hosting of other things for CMI in my copious spare time when I'm not working with brands all over the world trying to figure out their content strategies.
Writing books, doing all kinds of...
Sure, yeah, podcasts, all hashtag all the things, yeah.
And I'll tell you, Joe...
He's our chief troublemaker, too.
He's your chief troublemaker, but I will tell you a minor bit of resentment. In order to see Robert, you have to get up early,
Yes.
but it is worth it.
It's
Well,
definitely
Your keynote, and hopefully we'll roll a little bit of that.
I never get the chance to choose my time frame because I would choose a later time, but they are chosen for me. Yeah.
So today we're talking a little bit about creativity and what it means for creative
Shocking
underdogs.
for this show. that you're
I
talking about
know.
creativity.
How did you not get one of these
I
shirts?
have not gotten one. I have not been sent one. I have not been given it.
Wait a minute, I think I gave you one of
That is
these.
not true. This is not true, ladies and gentlemen. He did not give me anything.
So Joe, why don't you tee it up?
Okay. Oh, so this episode that we were talking about is all about creativity and being an underdog. Underdog stories, not the little guy, not the little dog that takes the pill and...
But that's a really good one, though. But yeah,
That's a great underdog story. But no, there's so many creatives in our industry, in every industry, that just are afraid to take a leap.
Okay.
And sometimes they're afraid to, they just think that maybe they won't succeed, or they're afraid to try something new. But then there's those creatives that did it, and the odds were stacked against them. They were considered underdogs, but then they really succeeded in what, their passion. So let me ask you, do you have a story that you could share with us about like a creative underdog story? We have so many, like, Stallone with Rocky or something like that.
Sure. Well, I guess I would point to two, because it is all about me, after all. I would point to two. The first one that I would point to is a story that I love, which is, of course, the drummer for the Rolling Stones, Charlie Watts, who started as a jazz drummer, and there was really no chance of him making it as a rock and roll drummer at all, and was, old for a rock and roll drummer, and here he gets really makes his choice to join up with Mick and the Boys, and arguably changes the history of rock and roll, and certainly is one of the most impactful and influential rock and roll drummers to have been around. And of course, the Rolling Stones are one of my favorite bands of all time, and so I look at him and the journey that he decided to go down, because he's a quiet, understated man who decided to go with one of the most bombastic and loudest rock and roll bands on the planet, but did it to explore his artistic and his creative journey, and it was just an amazing, the results speak for themselves.
Yeah.
And I think to once again make it all about me, I would point to my own journey is a bit of an underdog story. When I grew up truly working as, I used to call myself, I'm a huge Star Trek nut.
Sure.
And I used to call myself number one. And the reason I called myself number one is because I was never the guy, right? I was never the boss. I was never the entrepreneur. I was always the person who made stuff happen, right? So when I worked for a CEO in a startup company, when I worked for my boss in a bigger company, when I was a consultant in a larger consulting firm, I was always not the guy who set the vision and set the creation and set the creativity for things. I was always the guy who made stuff happen.
Right.
And when I left my business as a number one in a startup company in 2008, I decided I was going to go, this is 2008, remember, so the economy was where it was, and we were all putting money in our mattress and all of that, and I went to my wife and I said, I want to be a creative guy. That's how I want to make a living. I want to make a living creating storytelling, writing, books. I want to do all the things and make a career out of that. And she said, first of all, are you absolutely nuts? Have you seen our bank account? And then she said, oh, go do that. So turning that around, and what I discovered was exploring that part of myself not only gave me a newfound confidence to do some of the things that I'd always wanted to do, which was write books and do a podcast and do all the things that I do now, but it also gave me the newfound confidence in the planning and the more analytical part of what I was doing. So it was sort of it was really my exploration of my, at that point, sort of, imposter syndrome of creativity really blossomed, because it not only blossomed my confidence in my creativity, but it blossomed my abilities in the analytical side, and I just became a better, well-rounded business person because of it.
Sure.
So it's been an incredible journey.
That's awesome. That's an awesome story.
Your creativity was there. You needed that leap of faith to get out of that comfort zone.
Yeah, it's almost like the creativity needed to be creatively explored. You know what I mean? It was like, I remember writing in my journal in 2007, that my entire career I have felt stifled, right? And it's my own fault. It wasn't the fault of my bosses or anything but I had sort of pushed it all down to basically say, that's not what I do. What I do is plan. I'm analytical. I look at, and plot out the best course for businesses and all those things, which in itself is creative. But if you don't see it that way, you begin to start to believe your own mythology, right? Which is that you are not a creative person. And I in my journal, I wrote that I was really frustrated with that. And so allowing myself to creatively explore my creativity and just sort of say yes a lot, right? Start saying yes to just about everything, and just some of them were wrong decisions, some of them were good decisions, some of them really were ugly, some of them were not, but just allowing those things to be. It was funny. I actually told a friend this the other day. It's like one of the things that has, because you both know, being as creative as you are, you look back at some of your past work and you're like, it's kind of cringeworthy. Like you look back and you go, oh, but what you start to, and this mentor of mine, she said to me at one point, she said, look, just remember that's something you did, it's not who you are. And who you are was exploring the creative side of you at that moment in that time. And so creating that exploration is the important part. It's not the end result. That's just something you do. And hopefully over time, the things that you do get better and better and better and better, and you're more proud of them and you're more proud of them, and and those things. but it's just, it's the exploration that has been the important part, not the results, not the, the stuff that get, the artifacts that get created.
So it's almost like just a series of learning experiences that you just keep building on, building on, building on.
Yeah, it's just, and I would just even call them experiences, right?
Right.
And so, I mean, I said in my book that, it was a thing that my grandfather taught me, which is, when you create an experience for someone else, so that creativity, when you create an experience for someone else, the coolest thing about it is that you yourself get to experience the thing.
Right.
Yeah.
You know what I mean? So
Yes.
if I make a piece of music, or if I make a white paper, or if I make a birdhouse, whatever I create, if I create that experience for someone, I get to experience that thing too. I get to experience the music and the book and the white paper and all those things. So it's enriching for me to create something for someone else, an audience in this particular case.
Robert, you did bring up a really interesting point.
I always do.
You always
I
do.
really do.
You always do.
It's-
You are
absolutely.
a prognosticator.
There we go. Yeah.
Of the grand form.
Yes.
You brought up imposter syndrome.
Yes.
There are so many creatives, I believe, buddy. I mean, we've experienced, you with comic book school, and a lot of the talks you've given to creators, that they have a great idea, but they're just like, nah, nobody's going to love it.
Right.
And they're just afraid to pursue it because they're convincing themselves that it's just not a good idea.
Yeah.
But
Or who am I?
Right,
Like,
who am I to do it?
Who am I to do this thing or to write about this idea? It's like, look, the last thing in the world needs right now is another marketing book, right? I mean, it's been talked about enough. But when you start to write it, immediately you start to go, well, who am I? Who am I to the greats that have gone before me and written about marketing or business or creativity or whatever it is, and here are these amazing shoulders that you're standing on. Who am I to actually, who cares, right? Who cares about what I have to say? And what you have to remember, and my wife actually reminds me of this all the time, she says, look, remember, just because it's easy for you doesn't mean it's easy for someone else. And so your ideas, even though you may think they're obvious, right? Or you may think, who am I to do this? For someone else, they may find complete poetry in it. They may find, utility in it, right? We were talking about this morning, right? Just things that, we say or do or create are often, what I find is that blog post or that thing that I wrote and spent 7 minutes on is the thing I get 9 emails about saying how amazing it was, and the thing that I spend, hours and weeks and things sweating on, it's like, crickets, right? So you just don't know, right? You just don't know.
And that goes to something you said earlier. You said yes to a lot of things.
Yes.
And I think about your experiences in art school. You had a formalized education. I think after our formal education, we're responsible for our own education.
Yep.
By putting yourself into a swim lane, you were limiting your experiences, and once you went out on your own, you had by no choice. Once you committed that leap, you had to do a lot of things to make income. What was the impact of saying yes to so many things and experiencing so many things that you might not have experienced had you stayed exclusively in your swim lane?
It was good and bad. And the reason I did it was because when I decided to go out on my own, I asked a lot of people about what I should do and got advice and all those sorts of things. And the one sort of common thread of advice was exactly that: say yes to a lot of things. Say yes to just about everything, and you'll find the thing. You'll find what it is that impassions you and really makes you want to continue. And it's a full exploration. Don't just narrowly get into one thing, because it may not be the thing that you're good at, right? And it may not be the thing that you actually want to pursue. And as the famous, wonderful, I think it's Jim Carrey's graduation, it's like you can fail at things that, that ultimately, that you hate, right? And so you can easily do something for 30 years and then fail at it, right? And have hated the ride out. So saying yes was the good part of it, was getting to experience so many different things, right? So, just sort of really, the bad part of it is a lot of thrash. right? It's a lot of paint on the floor. It's a lot of, you end up not being efficient. And for someone who's focused on, analytics and planning and all those kinds of things, that wild swing to literally play, as John Cleese would say, literally play with no intention of output, just throwing stuff against the wall with no intention of being useful or not, and just saying yes to everything that comes in, is really hard. And because you look at all the stuff everything on the cutting room floor, and there's so much stuff there what you learn, the experience that you have doing that, at least for me, it really started to help me build in the focus that I needed, right? It helped me build in the what I wanted to do, what I wanted to be.
And it told you what you didn't want to do.
Right, exactly. Right.
It
Probably
clarified.
even more importantly.
Yeah, you could,
more importantly.
right, you put it into a column. I find that, so you're an exceptional speaker, and I think that a lot of our audience, like me, and I speak a lot, but I still look at you and I go like, how does he do it? I think part of it is probably from that thrash experience. I'm sure you've learned a lot on the stage, what works, but more importantly, what doesn't work. And I think that, people who are looking to get on the stage often say, how do I do that? I can never be that good. What would you say to the people who say, I'd like to be getting out there, sharing my ideas, but I don't see myself as a speaker? Can you speak to those people and the way that they can begin to make that path and also not be frozen by exceptional people? Like you see certain people that are so good that you go, I'm never going to pick up the guitar because Eric Clapton.
Right. Well, I'm never going to pick up the guitar because of Eric Clapton. But just to be clear about that. And as I say, I play at the piano, but like Elton played the piano, Billy played the piano. And so my advice is you have to just do it, and you have to love the doing of the thing. If you are speaking because you feel like you should, or because you feel like it's going to do something, like it's a bridge to something, then it's probably not going to work for you. In other words, if you hate doing it, but you think it's good for you for some reason, it becomes a lot like vitamins, right? You just sort of do it and you choke it down, and there are people who, quite frankly, have made a living out of that, right? You see them and go, yeah, they're fine, but they get what they need. But if you want to do it and you enjoy the doing of the thing, then it's just doing it over and over and over again, and you will get good at it. You just by its very nature, you'll get good at it. And what helped me was honestly looking at. I'm a perennial student. Like I read a lot, I watch a lot, and I study people a lot. And so when I decided that I wanted to be a speaker and sort of get out there and talk about things, I looked at all of the people that I really admired, not just stand-up comics or public speakers, but just people who were really eloquent in front of, a camera or an audience. And I just watched them. I just watched them for what they did. And, you start picking up things, right? Oh, that's what they're doing. And you start seeing it in a different way, right? You just start seeing things, it's like watching anybody do anything, right? Watching them draw, watching them paint, watching them, and you start seeing those tiny little things that, you can appreciate once you start doing them, but you really can't see as an audience member, right? It's like Jerry Seinfeld. He talks a lot about how every word that he says is rehearsed and chosen purposely. And that's an interesting thing to me, because I watched him actually have a debate with Chris Rock, who is the exact opposite, right? Who says, I just kind of make it up as I go. But both of them, when they're on stage, are very eloquent, right? They speak well. And so you look at it and go, who am I more like, right? Who am I more like? And I find that I'm much more like Seinfeld, right? So I'm much more, I want to know the words I'm going to say. Now, I am blessed in the sense that I have a fairly quick mind where I can, like I'm already thinking about the thing I'm going to say next, right? And so it's helpful, but all it comes down to is practice. Practice.
Now, let me prompt you for one more thing. Sorry, I'm just like jumping in because, this is an opportunity for me too. Two things. One, you had noted, and, if we have to cut this, we will, that you took formal training for speaking. At one point.
I did.
You did. I thought you'd said it on the show.
Yep.
And two, we're at an event, and it could sound self-serving, but I've always believed that when people finish college or university, they stop investing in themselves. They think that it all has to be free or earned. And can you just talk a little bit about your own responsibility, or not even responsibility, your own opportunity to invest in yourself and what that means, and that you have to pick what's right for you, but what's right for you maybe going to somebody who is ahead of you, who can help guide you or mentor you.
Well, that's 100%. And for me, for public speaking anyway, it was about understanding that when I would watch myself after, and I don't like to watch myself after, but I would watch myself, and I knew I had bad habits, and I wasn't achieving the things that I wanted to achieve, right? And in the way that I wanted to achieve them. My public speaking has never been sort of an overarching goal for me. It's just something I do. And so, but I wanted to get better at it. And the way that it's that old cliche, right? You only get better when you surround yourself with people that are better than you. You don't get better at basketball unless you play on a team where everybody is better than you. Right. And so that's what I did. So I chose to invest in myself and say, the only way I'm going to get to do that is if I purposely go to a place where I'm inserting myself into a discomforting situation, right? Where everybody's going to be better than me in some way.
There's a level of humility that at your level in your career that you have to bring back and go, you've spoken in front of thousands of people.
I've never had the issue of coming in with the student's mind. Okay. That's never been a challenge for me. Right. I've always, I approach everything that way. I approach my consulting work that way. I approach everything with the student's mind because I'm here to learn. I'm always here to learn. I'm here to learn. And if I can be better on the other side of it, then what I've done is, going back to what I was talking about earlier, is I've created an experience for someone and they've created an experience for me, and I've gotten to experience the whole thing. And to me, that's the enriching part, right? It's like, if I walk in and I'm the smartest guy in the room, I've learned nothing. Right? And if I walk in and I'm the best speaker in this, it's not any good, right? If I've got nowhere to go, then where am I going?
So, as we think about what we can do with the creative show and where Robert's been, one of the areas that I always wonder about is advice that you wish you had received earlier in your career. Now, I always try to think, what were the mistakes that I had to make, and what is one piece of advice that you wish that someone had given you earlier in your career?
It's a great question, and the one that always comes up for me is, I wish somebody had said, you can jettison earlier. The funny thing is that in many ways, the jobs that I've had, the career that I've had, I have not taken advantage of opportunities because I was comfortable. And it's one of those things where when you can spot the opportunity, but you go, I don't think I can jettison just yet. I can't. Right. I'm either really comfortable right now, or I'm scared, or anything that you use to justify it. But ultimately, what it comes down to is fear, right? And so the advice is that I wish I had gotten earlier, which is, when your gut tells you, go, right? Make your plans and go, and don't sit around and wait and justify it. Because what ends up happening is, and when I was in a startup company, it was the same thing. I was there 3 years longer than I should have been.
I hear you.
And I was there 3 years longer than I should have been not because I saw this amazing opportunity that I needed to go do and should have left. It was because once I started to feel it in my gut that I was not right there, I started to rationalize it like, yeah, but I got to stick it out. I got to, the world expects me to stick it out because we're going to IPO one day, or we're going to get acquired one day, or, there is something there that I can continually rationalize myself. And what I wish somebody had told me was like, look, man, life's too short and there will be others. There will be other opportunities. If you aren't feeling it, then go, move, take action.
There's an expiration date on food for a reason.
Yes, that's right. That's exactly right.
Right.
That's exactly right. That's exactly right. Best sold by.
Yeah. Yeah.
That's the way. And
Yeah.
for those of our viewers who might feel like you're longing for something or that something isn't there, I think this is a great piece of advice to really be honest with yourself.
Yeah. And don't make fear-based decisions.
Right.
I think, let's clarify that. There is a certain amount of fear-based decision that you have to make sometimes.
Well, of course. Yeah. I mean,
Right.
if
Like,
someone's
just talk about
if someone's coming at you, with a machete, you probably want to run. Yeah. It's that. It's the. Understand that there is a time for decision, and that there is a time. This fits right into the entire creative process, which is, and Cleese talks about this when he talks about the creative process, which is, there is the he calls it the rabbit brain, and the rabbit brain versus the other brain, and I can't remember what it is off the top of my head, but one is play, explore, don't worry about it, don't make decisions, just let your mind go. The other is, as he said, when you're pinned down by a machine gun in a nest in the war, it's not the time to play and let go and be indecisive about things. You be very decisive about things. What I mean by don't make a fear-based decision is, don't make a decision based on your fear. In other words, fear may come into it, but making a decision based on your fear about something else that can happen, it's why worry is the most useless of emotions. Worry is the most useless of all emotions. It has zero purpose. Worry is completely useless. So it doesn't mean you never will worry, but it means when you are worried, feel it, process it, and you've got to let it go, because it's useless. Worrying over something is not in any way productive, and making a decision based on that is the worst time to make a decision.
And then on a final thought, I'm interested in both of your thoughts on practice. When you think about musicians and practice, it's self-evident. What amazed me was that AC/DC still rehearses before they go on tour.
Sure.
Right?
Yeah.
I mean, they've been around forever, and you would think, well, they just get up there and they know their work.
Right.
One of the things that I advocate for creative people is that in your free time, you should create.
Yeah.
Because you need to know the tools. It could be speed keys in Photoshop or Adobe Premiere. It could be in almost anything. But when there's a pressure moment, and we've been in pressure moments on the stage and in delivery, you have to go to muscle memory, right? It's like martial arts.
Sure.
You don't have really time to think. But if you haven't had that practice, you don't build the muscle memory.
Right.
You will hit a point where the deliverable under pressure isn't good. You want to talk a little bit about practice. I mean, I think the key thing with practice with you is you're called to do an idea, but you've been practicing literally all year long. I see your notebooks are extensive.
Yeah.
And that's a practice, and
Right.
it's work, but you have a sense of what brush will work.
Sure. And there was a wonderful quote that I read once, specifically for graphic designers. And it was about somebody that doesn't want to pay a designer because, it only took him 7 minutes to create that logo.
Right.
But it took me 30 years of practice to be able to do it in 7 minutes.
Which tools to choose, right?
Right. It took me 30 years of schooling and work and practice to be able to do that logo in 7 minutes.
How about you, Robert? What do you think about practice?
It's probably the most important thing. I mean, this is why you have to love the doing of the thing, right? Because practice is the doing of the thing. And you do the thing, if I'm doing a talk, or if I'm doing, a deliverable for a client, or if I'm working on a blog post or a book, I'm writing, I'm creating, as every day, whether or not those outputs are going to be, successful or even used, right? I'm just, I've got entire manuscripts on my desktop on my computer that are, they're just there, right? They're literally there because I'm typing them, right? And practicing. And that I learned when I was a musician. And it's funny because that you bring up that quote, JK, because it's the way I like to think of it is, because I've seen the same quote, right?
Yeah,
Which is, you
sure.
know, you get paid for the 30 years, not for the 7 minutes, right?
Right.
Which is the 30 years of practice in the 7 minutes of execution. The way I like to reframe that just slightly is when someone says to me, you know, I'm paying you, you know, it only takes you 7 minutes to do that deliverable or that blog post or whatever, and you're charging me thousands of dollars for it. It's like, what is that? I say, you're not paying me for my time. You're paying me for yours. And so if you can do it in a minute, if you can do it in 7 minutes, then you wouldn't have hired me, right? So what's the value on your time, right? When I pay a plumber so expensive to come out and fix my toilet or my pipes, I'm not paying for him for his time. I'm paying for my time.
Yeah.
And so I will gladly pay a big fee because he's doing in 7 minutes what it would take me 3 days to do.
Right.
And so that's where the value of practice really comes in, is because you can do things so much better and so much more efficiently because you have practiced for so long. The value then becomes the value that you deliver to others is not what it took you. The value that you deliver to others is what they would have to do in order to do the same thing. You know, if I go play a concerto, you know, the audience in there that's paying for the tickets to watch me play a concerto, they're not paying me for my time of the 5 minutes that it takes me to play the concerto or even the music. What they're paying for is the fact that they can't do it. They haven't put in the work.
Right.
And they're paying for their time.
Well, that sounds great. Thank you so much, Robert. It has been
And that's it. And that, everybody, is why J.K. Kalinowski, has the Robert Rose tattoo on his forearm. Joe, that is commitment. Thank you for committing to the creative team in the way you just demonstrated.
You know, it's all for the team, my friend. It's all for the community. And why not get a Robert Rose tattoo?
Why not? And hey, everybody, if you guys want to get a Robert Rose tattoo or just have a really cool tattoo idea, you know, feel free to send it over to us. And thank you so much for joining us for this very special episode. We enjoyed doing this type of in real life interview. And I think as we approach the show for Cleveland, and Joe, I'm going to prompt you for the date on that because I don't remember the date, but I think it's in September.
It is.
For the show in Cleveland, we're going to be doing some more recordings in real life. And that means we want to hear from you, the community. If you see us and you see Amanda and you see me and you see Joe with our cameras, we're going to be asking questions from you, and we'd like for you to be part of the show. So as you're making your plans for Cleveland, definitely be sure to come up to see Joe and me. And Joe, where can they find you if they want to follow up and see an Insta or a tweet of your new tattoo?
Well, they can find me on Twitter at JK Kalinowski, or, you know, you can always find us at the Content Marketing Institute. How about you, buddy?
Same. You can find me in all places at Buddy Scalera, but also at Comic Book School. You ever notice, Joe, how differently and yet distinctly we dress, even in this photo? Like, I am almost always single primary color clothes, one solid, and you're always a pattern.
Well, you know why, buddy? Because, you know, you have that wonderful, thick, lush head of hair. And, you know, I don't have much to work with here, so I got to go with the tattoos and the bright and crazy clothes.
I wish I had your confidence in creativity in clothing, Joe. It just shows that you're confident.
Thank you. Well, listen, buddy, you did mention it, and I'd just like to say, if you'd like to join us at Content Marketing World, September 13th through 16th in Cleveland, Ohio. If you're interested, visit contentmarketingworld.com to register. In addition, if you'd like, I think that we may have a little creative show coupon code for you. It's Creative 100. So register, come join us. Hopefully we could hit you up for a couple questions out of Content Marketing World. It'd be a fun, and there might be some shenanigans planned as well. More to come on that, buddy.
Yeah, and special thanks to our editor, who really did the heavy lifting for this episode. Amanda, call me Mandy Subler. Great job, Amanda. We really appreciate it. The edit came out great. And thanks to you, for all of you out there who continue to support us, keeping us as the longest running live show here on the Content Marketing Institute. We will see you next show, and hopefully we will see some of you in Cleveland. Goodbye, everybody.
Here.